Hey guys, Brent Campbell again. Next year I'm going to cross over into 10 years of ownership on my E46 M3. Truth is, this time has flashed by. I feel like I get to know the car a little bit better each year, but I've barely scratched the surface. Anyway, I wanted to share what I can about the experience so far. In particular, the work that's been done on it since new, along with some of the number crunching that surprised even me what a reliable car this is to look after. To ensure that I didn't miss anything, I went through every record I have on the car going back to 2009, the year after my brother bought it. He then sold it to me in 2011 when he got the M5.
By then, when I drove it from Georgia to Queens and got my first parking ticket, it had driven 72,000 miles.
From BMW, I have the records of my M3's first 3 years in Clayton, Georgia,
where my brother discovered it in 2009 while driving past the local Ford dealership lot there. En route back from a trip to the Smoky Mountains, he couldn't shake it, and so later he returned to buy it. When my brother took ownership, he found that it had been well maintained, including getting the Inspection 1 service, and he continued to maintain it as directed by BMW.
In 2010, at over 57,000 miles, my brother had the Inspection 2 work done by the local dealership in Athens, Georgia. This cost about $1,600. Miscellaneous items have needed to be replaced over the years, but almost nothing major. My first big repair bill came in 2013 when I had to replace the front brakes, which the dealer in Port Chester, New York did for me. Then in 2014, JC Auto replaced 2 ignition coils for $314 after that same dealer bid about $1,800 for that same job. I got a new battery that year and an indie shop just down the road I could trust.
In 2015, BMW fixed the Takata airbag, and then in June, I took the M3 to the track at New Jersey Motorsports Park. It performed beautifully, especially in the twisties.
In 2016, we did the rear brakes and then addressed the rear differential leak. Then got a new water pump, belts, and thermostats in 2017. By 2018, I was on to my second set of tires. Then I had another minor repair that summer with a leaking oil pressure relief valve. With a few minor repairs along the way, the big one was this year, 2020, when we replaced the rod bearings, the oil pump, adjusted the valves, and installed new engine mounts. I talked about this earlier in my M3 rod bearings replacement video in much greater detail if you haven't yet seen it. The most shocking thing to me after crunching the numbers is how little maintenance has been required over the years when I consider the length of time. Granted, I've never daily driven this car. A typical American drives, and this is according to the Department of Transportation, 13,476 miles per year. If this car had been driven at that rate over 16 years,
it would have over 215,000 miles on the odometer by now.
And you know what? It would be doing just fine. As many cared for M3s I see in Facebook groups have mileage well beyond that. So long as you maintain them, they will run as long as you let them. And currently, it has driven less than half as many miles, over 104,000. In the 9 years I've had it, I've only put about 33,000 miles on it, or about 3,700 miles per year on average. So I'd factor my experiences with that in mind. Not only do I not drive it too often, but I'm careful to treat it with the respect it deserves when I do, same as when I'm not driving it. My business in college was detailing cars, and I dutifully go through all the steps I know I need to undergo to keep the car looking its best cosmetically. Though after 16 years, it has its share of scrapes, and I'm okay with that. I'd intended the M3 as more of a track car than garage queen, though I haven't made it to the track as often as I would have liked. I don't just let it sit for long periods either. During the winter when I drive at least, I tend to keep it plugged into a battery trickle charger, taking it out every week or two when the roads are clear, in part to keep it running regularly. Something I've learned over the years helps. And so far, doing all of this has not let me down. Fact is, when we replaced the rod bearings this summer, they weren't all that worn. The issues that I've had that I don't hear about so often from other E46 M3 owners relates to the leaking rear differential and oil pressure relief valve. I don't know if these issues are unique to my car not as expensive, or just not as common. I replaced the rod bearings this year, and I found that they didn't urgently need to be replaced. But common issues like rotting engine mounts needed to be dealt with, and the valves needed to be adjusted anyway, so I have no regrets there. I've not yet addressed the rear subframe. I likely will next year. That and the Vanos rattle. And there are some cosmetic issues I'm eager to address, some as simple as a new roundel for the hood and new badge for the trunk lid, while others are more involved tasks like replacing the interior trim. Paying the maintenance on these cars is downright cheap compared to buying a new one and accepting the depreciation cost. I'll explain. As you may have also heard, E46 M3 values are on the rise. I won't pretend that mine is in concours condition from a mileage standpoint alone. Though been cared for, cosmetically it has scratches and minor cosmetic only issues that, like I said, should be addressed. Mechanically, I haven't cut corners, but I haven't gone crazy either. To consider it in excellent condition, I need to address the scratches, proactively address the Vanos and subframe issues, and the trim issues that have long driven me nuts. In fact, doing this analysis has confirmed in my mind that I should just fix these issues. I hate parting with money, but not addressing them negatively affects the value of my asset. According to this valuation, which came from Haggerty, for 2004 to 2006 models, a good condition E46 M3 is worth $32,000. A fair condition E46 M3 is $21,500. And let's say, given that mine has the less desirable SMG transmission, it's worth $20,000, which is $4,000 less than what I paid for it 9 years ago. Which means its cost of ownership mostly comes down to maintenance, which is something. If it cost $55,000 new, and I paid $24,000 for it 7 years later, then its first 7 years, the car lost $31,000 in value, or about $4,400 per year. All in, I've spent less than half of that on maintenance, on average, for every year I've owned it, though I have a couple of expensive repairs ahead. All in, I've spent $18,144 in maintenance in my 9+ years of ownership, or $2,016 per year. And accurately or not, let's say I've lost $4,000 to depreciation over those 9 years, or $444 per year. So that's less than $2,500 per year I've paid or lost. And in that time, my asset hasn't lost much value, despite my 9 years of owning it and driving it over 30,000 miles. Meanwhile, what's a new one cost? $80,000? In 7 years, if 56% of its value has gone, $45,000 of that investment will have evaporated to depreciation. Before insurance, gas, tires, or brakes, that's $8,000 per year gone in depreciation. All in, on the other hand, I've paid about $2,500 per year for my E46, and the value of my car is likely to go up looking ahead. Is the new M3 worth 3 times the money? I guess that's a personal choice, but personally, I'll keep my E46. Next, I'll do a similar analysis of my 6 years of ownership on my 2008 E60 M5 with the rare 6-speed manual transmission.